Alright, so ito ang ating Loan Impairment Part 2. So kung hindi mo pa napapanood ang Loan Impairment Part 1, ito ay continuations po ng ating Part 1. So dito sa Part 2, ang gagawin natin is magsusolve tayo ng problem from the grant date, anong mga entries ng bangko up to the time of the last payment ng borrower. So ang gagawin ko is I will flash the practice questions on your screen. Ngayon, it's up to you kung gusto mo siyang subukan i-journalize itong problem na ito or read the problem. But I will suggest na at least basahin mo yung problem para kapag binasa ko yung problem, naiintindihan mo kung ano ang sinasabi ko. So, ito na po yan. Harris Bank loaned Mulford Company $1 million on January 1, 2018. So Harris Bank is the lender and Mulford Company is the borrower. The principal amount na grinant ni Harris Bank kay Mulford Company ay ₱1 milyon. So that's the principal amount of the loan. And the grant date is January 1, 2018. The terms of the loans require principal payments in full in January 1, 2024. Remember, sa loan receivable, meron tayong loan agreement na tinatawag. Sa loan agreement na yon, nakasaad ang iyong principal at ang iyong interest. Alright? Ang principal, yan po yung mismong amount na inutang ni borrower. At saka yung interest, yan yung agreement nila na babayaran ni borrower. Annually, semi-annually, depende sa agreement ng borrower at ng lender. In this problem, the terms of the loan require principal payments in full on January 1, 2024. So, ang ibig sabihin, lump sum ang problem na ito. Na si Mulford Company, the borrower, will pay the bank in full yung mismo $1 million sa maturity date on January 1, 2024. Alright? Plus, annual interest payment at 12% starting 2019. Of course, magbabayad ng interest itong si borrower. So, yung interest na babayaran ni borrower annual is 12% of the principal. So, yan ang babayaran niyang interest. Mulford Company made the required interest payment on January 1, 2019 and January 1 of 2020. So, 2 taon nakabayad pa itong si Mulford Company yung borrower natin. However, during 2021, Mulford Company began to experience financial difficulties, requiring Harris Bank to reassess the collectibility of the loan. The bank considered the loan impaired and projected the cash flows from the loan on December 31st, 2021. So, on year 2021, nung na-confirm na ni Bangko na na-impair na nga itong kanyang loans receivable kay Mulford Company, ang gagawin niya is mag-recognize siya ng impairment loss ng 2021. Nung mag-prepare na siya ng kanyang financial statements ng December 31st, 2021, doon na siya mag-recognize ng impairment loss. The bank accrued the interest on December 31, 2020, but did not accrue the interest on December 31, 2021. Ang nangyari, nakapag-accrue pa siya ng interest receivable noong December 31, 2020. Pero hindi na siya nag-accrue ng interest receivable or hindi na siya nag-recognize ng interest income noong 2021 kasi alam na niya na na-impair na nga itong loans receivable na ito. The collection of interest is unlikely. So, hindi na siya kolekta ng interest sa loans receivable na yon. So, wala nang reason to accrue interest receivable on the interest for December 31st, 2021. Alright, umpisahan natin ang ating journal entry. On the grant date of January 1, 2018, January 1, 2018 is our transaction date. So, our entry is debit to loans receivable. So, debit to loans receivable of 1 million and credit to cash of 1 million. Alright? Yan yung grant date natin. So, on December 31st of 2018, Siyempre, magpre-prepare ng financial statements ang bangko, ang lender. So, on December 31st, 2018, meron na siyang na-earned na interest from January 1 up to December 31st of 2018. Kailan magbabayad si borrower? Sa January 1st of 2019. So, noong December 31st, 2018, na-earn na niya pero hindi pa niya nare-receive. Kailan niya marireceive? So, January 1, 2019. So, on December 31st of 2018, ang entry natin sa na-earn niya na interest is debit to accrued interest receivable and credit to interest income of 120,000. So, paano niya kinompute itong 120,000? That is 1 million multiplied by the 12% na nominal interest rate. Yung agreement nila between the lender and the borrower, si Harris Bank at saka ni Mulford Company. Yan yung interest income ng bangko sa loans receivable na ito. Alright, here comes January 1, 2019. Na-receive ni bangko, ni Harris Bank, yung payment ni Mulford Company, yung borrower, yung sa interest. So, we debit our cash of 120,000 and we credit the accrued interest receivable. Bakit? Kasi na-receive na nga po natin. Kaya aalisin na natin yan sa ating receivable. So, we debit our cash and we credit our accrued interest receivable of 120,000 on January 1, 2019, nung na-receive natin yung payment ni borrower. So, here comes December 31st, 2019. So, mag-a-accrue ulit si bangko ng accrued interest receivable na na-earn niya na interest income from January 1 up to December 31st of 2019. Okay? Ito namang interest income na ito marireceive niya ng January 1st of 2020. Alright, so yan po ang entry natin kapag nag-accrue tayo ng interest income na na-earn na ni bangko pero hindi pa niya nare-receive. Our entry is debit to accrued interest receivable of 120,000 and interest income of 120,000. Bakit 120,000 pa rin? Kasi ang outstanding ng loans receivable na yon ay still 1 million. So here comes January 1 of 2020. Yung second payment ng interest from Mulford Company or the borrower. So, our entry nung tinanggap ng bangko ang interest income or ang interest receivable is debit to cash and credit to accrued interest receivable. Aalisin na rin kasi nasingil na po natin the following day. Alright, then here comes December 31st of 2020. Mag-a-accrue ulit tayo ng na-earn ni bangko from January 1, 2020 up to December 31st of 2020. Meron ulit siyang na-earned na interest sa loans receivable na ito. So, we debit our accrued interest receivable and credit to interest income. So, meron tayong account na accrued interest receivable ng December 31st of 2020. Now, here comes January 1st of 2021. Makaka-receive sana tayo ng cash from this accrued interest receivable ng January 1, 2021. Pero ang sabi ng problem is Mulford Company made the required interest payments on January 1 of 2019 and January 1 of 2020. Hindi sinabi ng problem natin na nakabayad siya ng January 1, 2021. So, itong January 2021 na dapat magkakaroon tayo ng journal entry, wala tayong entry ngayon dahil hindi nga siya nakabayad. Tapos, ang sabi ng problem natin, however, during 2021, napag-alaman ni Harris Bank, nagkakaroon ng financial difficulties itong si Mulford Company, yung borrower, requiring Harris Bank to reassess the collectibility of the loan. So, noong December 31st, magkano na kaya ang pwedeng bayaran ni Mulford Company? So, nung mag-prepare na siya ng kanyang financial statements sa December 31st, 2021, this is the time na magre-recognize siya ng impairment loss. So, sa December 31st of 2021, ang gagawin ng bangko, magre-recognize siya ng impairment loss. So, December 31st, 2021, magre-recognize na ngayon si Harris Bank ng kanyang impairment loss. Alright? So, paano natin gagawin yan? Ganito po yan. So, i-compute muna natin kung magkano ang impairment loss na i-recognize ni Harris Bank. Sa Loan Impairment Part 1 natin, diniscuss natin kung paano natin nako-compute o naka-calculate ang ating impairment loss. Mag-uumpisa tayo sa carrying amount. Remember, the carrying amount of your loans receivable, mag-uumpisa ka sa principal amount and then you add any recorded accrued interest receivable. Alright? Yung recorded lang. Yung mga hindi na niya hindi na yon kasama sa carrying amount ng ating loans receivable. Our principal amount on this problem is 1 million. Then we will add our accrued interest receivable of 120,000. So our carrying amount of our loans receivable is 1,120,000. Itong projected future cash flow ay given sa problem natin. Alright? Usually given ito sa problem. So, itong projected future cash flow na given sa problem, yan po yung amount na pwede pang bayaran ni borrower. So, sa problem natin, it says the projected cash flows are December 31st, 2022. Next year pa yan, babayaran niya si bangko ng 400,000. So, makakabayad pa siya ng buong principal na inutang niya, pero hindi na niya ito babayaran ng lump sum. Alright? Ang gagawin niya is babayaran niya ng 400,000 next year at babayaran niya the following year pa yung 600,000. So, ilagay muna natin dito yung projected cash flows. At sabi dito, December 31st, so, ito ang projected future cash flows natin. Yung pwede pang bayaran ng borrower sa bangko. 400,000 and 600,000. That's equivalent to 1 million of the principal. Now, itong future projected cash flows, imo-multiply po natin ito sa present value factor. At ang sabi ng problem, the present value of want at 12% is 0.8929 for one period and 0.7972 for the second period. So, itong first period, imo-multiply natin ito with imo-multiply po natin yan sa present value factor. Mamaya, i-explain ko sa iyo kung bakit natin kailangan imo-multiply ito sa present value factor. So, yung marireceive ni bangko na 400,000, imo-multiply natin sa 0.8929, we will come out with the amount 357,160. And yung 600,000 na marireceive natin 2 years from 2021 is 600 times 0.7972. We will come up with a present value of 478,320. So, we will have a present value of all future cash flow of 800 and 480. Yan po ang ating present value of all future cash flows. Then, paano natin nakakalculate ngayon ang ating impairment loss? Ang impairment loss is the difference between this carrying amount at ang present value of our future cash flows. So, itong difference niya, so, ang ibig sabihin, ang impairment loss natin ngayon is 284,520. So, So, ganyan po ang ating calculations ng ating loan impairment loss. Una mong gagawin is kukunin mo kung magkano ang carrying amount ng loans receivable. Yung mga projected future cash flow, imo-multiply natin yon sa present value factor. Then, we will come out with a total of the present value of all future cash flow. Ima-minus mo ito dito sa future cash flow, yan po ang ating magiging loan impairment loss. So remember this, our impairment loss on this problem is 284,520. So paano natin ito i-journalize? We have two ways to journalize our impairment loss. And one of the way is what we call direct method. Yung isa is the allowance method. I will make some columns for these two methods and then the financial statement presentations at yung transaction para makita mo side by side kung paano natin gino-journalize using those two methods. Alright, ganito po yan. Alright, so ganito po natin i-record ang loan impairment loss. So remember, our loan impairment loss na calculate natin was 284,520. Alright? So, paano natin i-record yan? Gagaya nga ng sabi ko sa'yo, there are two methods of recording our loan impairment loss. And these are our direct methods or our allowance methods. So, gagawin natin, i-journalize natin itong impairment loss na nakuha natin using these two methods side by side para makita mo ang difference nila. Okay? Then, I will discuss these financial presentations as we go along with the journalizing the transactions. So, ito naman ang mga transactions na naiiwan dito sa ating loans receivable. Na-confirm ni Harris Bank na na-impair na nga po itong loans receivable niya kay Mulford Company noong year 2021. So, nung mag-prepare siya ng kanyang financial statement, magre-record siya ngayon ng loan impairment loss. So, on December 31st of 2021, to record the loan impairment loss using our direct method is debit to loan impairment loss of 284,520. Then, ano ang credit ng ating impairment loss? Ang credit ng impairment loss is credit to the accrued interest receivable. Nag-accrue tayo ng 120,000. Aalisin na po natin yon. Bakit? Kasi hindi na nga po tayo makakasingil ng interest. Remember, that is a debit side. So, kung aalisin mo ang account na yon or i-zero out mo na yung account na yon, i-credit side mo. So, kung ang normal side ng account ay debit at i-zero out mo siya, i-credit mo. So, we will credit the accrued interest receivable. Then, the rest is credited to your loans receivable. Bakit sa loans receivable? Kasi direct method ito. So, sa direct method, directly inaalis na natin sa ating loans receivable. Alright? So, we credit our loans receivable of the difference between this loan impairment loss na 284,520 minus your 120,000. Alright? So, ang aalisin natin dito sa loans receivable ay 164,520. Alright, yan po ang ating entry kapag ang ginagamit natin na method ay direct method. Inaalis po natin yan directly from our loans receivable. Now, ano ba ang ating entry ngayon kapag ang gagamitin natin ay allowance method? Our entry is, we will debit loan impairment loss. Alright, parehas na magre-recognize ng loan impairment loss na debit side si bangko, whether it's a direct method or allowance method. Now, dito naman sa allowance method, ang ating magiging credit ay parehas na accrued interest receivable. Aalisin din natin yan. Alright? Whether gagamit ka ng allowance method or direct method, aalisin natin yung accrued interest receivable na na-record natin noong December 31st, 2020. Alright? Dito sa allowance method naman, is mag-create tayo ng account called Allowance for Impairment Loss. The difference between this 284,520 less our 120,000, ang allowance for impairment loss natin is the same as the 164,520. Alright. Pwedeng tanungin ka kung magkano ang allowance for impairment loss sa problem. So, ito ang answer mo. So, ang difference between the direct method and allowance method, kung titignan mo, dito sa direct method, directly minus sa loans receivable. Dito naman sa allowance method is nag-create tayo ng account called allowance for impairment loss. Yan ang difference nila. Now, sa financial presentations mo naman, kung direct methods ang ginagamit, ang magiging balanse ng iyong loans receivable is 835,480. The principal amount of 1 million minus yung credit mo na 164,520, yan na lang ang natitira sa account mo ng loans receivable kapag direct method ang ginagamit. Kapag allowance method naman ang ginagamit, yung loans receivable mo, hindi tayo nag-credit. Hindi natin siya binawasan. But on allowance method, we have created an account called allowance for impairment loss. Alright? Itong allowance for impairment loss, yan ay contra account loans receivable. I-represent mo itong account na ito as deductions to your loans receivable to get your carrying amount. So our allowance for impairment loss is 164,520. Yan ang ililess natin sa principal amount to get our carrying amount of 835,480. Parehas lang ang end result ng direct method and allowance method, parehas lang ang magiging carrying amount nila. Alright? Nagkakaroon lang sila ng difference kasi iba ang treatment ng direct method at allowance method. Noong December 31st, 2022, naka-receive ang bangko, si Harris Bank, ng 400,000. Remember, the projected cash flow on December 31st, 2022 ay 400,000. At December 31st of 2023 ay 600,000. So, makakasingil pa rin si bangko ng 1 million na principal. Now, how do we record this 400,000 na na-receive ni bangko kay borrower? So, to record this 400,000, we are going to debit our cash, of course. Debit to cash of 400,000. And ano ang credit natin? Siyempre, mag-credit tayo ng loans receivable. A part of this 400,000, part of it is mapupunta sa principal, part of it mapupunta sa interest income. Paano natin mako-compute o makakalculate ang part ng interest income ni bangko sa 400,000? Alright, dito natin gagamitin ang tinatawag na effective interest method. Gagamit tayo ng effective interest method of calculating the interest income ni bangko. So, to compute or calculate for this interest income, we are going to take our carrying amount of 835,480 multiplied by the original effective interest rate. So, problem na ito, hindi given ang effective interest rate. Alright? Given lang ang nominal interest rate. Since wala tayong effective interest rate, we assumed that the nominal interest rate is the same as the effective interest rate. So, gagamitin natin yung 12% sa pag-calculate ng interest income ni bangko. We are going to take our carrying amount of 835,480 multiplied by 12%. So, ang interest income natin na i-recognize ni bangko, 835,480 times 12%, come out with the interest income of 100,258. Then, we credit our loans receivable na difference ditong interest income sa cash na na-receive natin. Alright? So, babawasan natin ang ating loans receivable ng 299,742. Yan po ang ating entry sa direct method nung na-receive natin yung 400,000 from the borrower on December 31st of 2022. Alright. Now, sa allowance method naman, paano natin gagawin yan? A part of this 400,000, i-recognize din natin as our interest income. Parehas lang sa allowance method. Pero nagkakaroon ng difference because of the allowance for impairment loss. So, ganito magiging entry natin. We debit cash. So, we debit our cash of 400,000 and we credit our loans receivable of 400,000. So, bakit 400,000? So, dito sa allowance method, hindi natin binabawasan ang ating account na loans receivable. So, nung tinanggap niya yung 400,000, i-credit niya yan sa 400,000. So, ang maiiwan na lang sa ating loans receivable later is 600,000. Then, on allowance method, magre-recognize din tayo ng ating interest income. So, paano natin i-recognize ngayon ang interest income? Kukunin natin yan sa allowance for impairment loss. Na 164,000, dyan natin kukunin at ilalagay natin sa ating interest income. So, we debit our allowance for impairment loss and we credit our interest income. So, paano natin kina-calculate kapag allowance method? Parehas lang po yon sa direct method. So, kukunin natin yung carrying amount ng iyong loans receivable, which is 835,480, multiplied by the 12%. So, ang i-recognize nating income ay parehas lang sa 100,258. So, ang difference ng direct method is nire-recognize ng interest income, tapos yung difference, yun ang ibabawas niya sa loans receivable. The difference between the cash received and the interest income, yun lang ang ibabawas niya as a principal sa loans receivable. Dito naman sa allowance method, dahil hindi natin binabawasan ang ating loans receivable, nandyan pa rin yung principal, yung cash na ni-receive natin, yun ang i-credit natin sa loans receivable. Then, magre-recognize tayo ng interest income, kukunin natin yan sa allowance for impairment loss na account. Alright? Yung allowance for impairment loss, parang tinago natin dyan, yung i-recognize nating interest income for year 2022 at year 2023. Paano natin i-present ito? For direct methods, so sa direct method, nag-credit tayo ng loans receivable na 299,742. Alright? Binawasan natin. So, kung meron tayong carrying amounts sa direct method na 835,480 noong December 2021 at nag-record tayo, nag-credit tayo ng 299,740, ibabawas natin yan sa carrying amount. So, ang bagong carrying amount ng iyong loans receivable sa year 2022 is 535,738. Yan na lang ang natitira sa account na loans receivable using the direct method. Sa allowance method naman, ang credit natin sa loans receivable ay 400,000. So kapag i-present mo na yan sa iyong financial statement, sa allowance method, ang natitira na lang sa loans receivable mo ay 600,000. Remember, our loans receivable is the principal on December 31st, 2021. Alright? Hindi natin binabawasan yan unless makasingil tayo. So, nakasingil tayo ng 400,000, ibabawas na niya yan. So, on December 31st of 2022, ang balanse na lang ng account natin ng loans receivable ay 600,000. Magre-recognize si bangko ng kanyang interest income sa natitirang taon. At yung interest income na yon ay minomultiply natin from the carrying amount multiplied by the effective interest rate. Okay, remember, kapag binigyan ka sa problem ng nominal interest rate at binigyan ka rin ng effective interest rate, gagamitin mo ay effective interest rate. Since ang problem natin hindi siya nagbigay ng effective interest rate, we assume that the nominal interest rate is the same as the effective interest rate. So, ganyan natin i-compute or i-calculate ang ating interest income. At saan mo kukunin? Doon sa allowance for impairment loss. Alright? So, ang carrying amount natin sa allowance method is also the same as the direct method. Allowance for impairment loss, binawasan natin ng 100,258. So, from this amount of 164,520, minaminus natin ang 100,258 kasi nag-debit tayo. Tapos, nag-recognize tayo ng interest income. Pagdating naman ngayon ng December 31st, 2023, kung saan nakareceive si bangko ng 600,000. So, paano niya i-record yung 600,000 na ni-receive niya using direct method? Now, we debit our cash of 600,000. So, yan yung ni-receive niyang cash from the borrower. We debit our cash of 600,000. Same on year 2022, nung tinanggap niya yung 400,000, a part of the 400,000 is a principal and a part of it is an interest income. Now, paano natin i-compute ngayon? Ang interest income, it's the same way, 535,000 na carrying amount multiplied by 12%. Since this is the last year na makaka-receive tayo kay borrower, kung ano man yung laman ng loans receivable mo, dahil isi-zero out na natin yan, i-credit natin ang 535,738. At ang magiging interest income mo is the difference. Alright? Alright, so ang entry natin using the direct method on December 31st, 2023, nung ni-receive niya yung 600,000 na binigay ni borrower as a payment, part of that will be interest income and a part of it will be the principal. Yung principal na doon nakalagay sa ating loans receivable. So, dahil ang naiiwan na lang sa principal amount ng loans receivable ay 535,738, yan ang i-credit natin para ma-zero out natin yung loans receivable kasi last payment na ni borrower. So, i-zero out na natin lahat ng ating accounts. The difference will be interest income. Kung gusto mong i-calculate yung interest income, that is 535,738 carrying amount multiplied by the effective interest rate of 12%. Mayroon silang difference because of the rounding off. Now, kapag allowance method naman ang ginagamit ng company or ng bangko, ang gagawin natin is kung magkano na lang yung natitira sa kanya account na allowance for impairment loss, which is 64,262, yan ang interest income na i-recognize niya sa year 2023. So, ang magiging entry natin this time on allowance method is debit to the cash na na-receive natin 600,000 and credit to the loans receivable of 600,000 para ma-zero out natin yung loans receivable kasi last payment na ni borrower yan. Alright? Then we will recognize our interest income na titira sa account na allowance for impairment loss na 64,262. So, we debit allowance for impairment loss para ma-zero out natin yung account na yan. Ganun po ang magiging entry natin kapag ginagamit natin ay allowance method. Alright? We debit the cash na na-receive natin na 600,000 and we credit the loans receivable of 600,000 kasi yan pa ang naiiwan sa yung account na loans receivable na principal. Then, yung naiiwan na amount sa yung allowance for impairment loss, yan din ay i-recognize natin as an interest income. So, i-zero out natin ang allowance for impairment loss na account, then we credit interest income. Ito po ang ating direct method in allowance method. So, ito ang tips ko sa iyo with regards to this loan impairment loss. Remember to calculate for our loan impairment loss. We are going to start with the carrying amount of our loans receivable. From the principal amount, ina-add po natin ang recorded accrued interest receivable. In-accrue lang natin, yung na-record lang natin. Yung mga hindi pa natin na-record, pero na-earn na niya, hindi na natin yun isasama sa carrying amount ng loans receivable. Remember on our our practice questions, ang carrying amount ng loans receivable natin was 1,120,000. And then, the projected future cash flow, nung na-impair na siya, magkano na lang ang mababayaran ng borrower. Yan ang tinatawag na projected future cash flows. Okay? Yung projected future cash flow natin doon sa ating practice question is 1 million. Okay? Yung principal. Pero babayaran niya ito ng 400 and then 600. Alright? So, ang projected future cash flow natin ay 1,000,000. Then, from the projected future cash flow, minomultiply po natin yan sa present value factor. Pag minultiply mo yan sa present value factor, makukuha mo yung present value of all future cash flows. And if you remember, our present value of all future cash flow was 835,480. So, ganito po ang gagawin mo kung ang sinusolve mong problem ay multiple choice at ang hinahanap mo ay yung mga amount. Okay? Kung ang hinahanap mo na amount is yung carrying amount of the loans receivable, you start with the principal amount, add mo yung recorded accrued interest receivable kung yan ang hinahanap nila. Hindi naman nila hahanapin ang projected future cash flow kasi given yan sa problem. Pwede nilang hanapin ang present value of all future cash flows. Ang gagawin mo lang, kukunin mo yung projected cash flows or future cash flows, multiply mo yun sa present value factor. Alright? Then, makukuha mo yung present value of all future cash flows. Pwedeng tanungin din ito. Of course, pwede rin tanungin ang loan impairment loss. So, paano mo i-compute yun? Yung difference ng carrying amount of the loans receivable at present value of all future cash flows, yan po ang impairment loss mo or loan impairment loss. So, the difference between the carrying amount and the present value of all future cash flows, that's your impairment loss, which is 1,120,000 less 835,480. We have a loan impairment loss of 284,520. Alright? So, that is your impairment loss. Kapag ang tinatanong naman ngayon ay kung magkano ang allowance for impairment loss na account, yung difference ng projected future cash flow at present value of all future cash flow, itong dalawang ito, yan po ang amount ng allowance for impairment loss. Alright? Which is amounting to 164,520, yung difference nilang dalawa. Alright? So, anong gagawin natin dito sa amount na 164,520? Alright? Remember, this account is a contra account of your loans receivable using allowance method. Contra account ito kapag present mo na ito sa financial statement mo. So, anong gagawin natin dito sa 164,520? Ito po ay i-recognize natin as interest income for the remaining life of the loan using original effective interest rate. Alright, so ang gagawin natin sa allowance for impairment loss, this will be recognized as interest income for the remaining life of the loan, okay, using original effective interest rate. So remember, kapag ang problem binigyan kanya ng original effective interest rate versus a nominal interest rate, ang gagamitin mo ay yung original effective interest rate. Paano natin nakakompute o nakakalculate ang interest income na i-recognize niya for the year? Ganito po ang calculation niyan. Mag-umpisa ka sa carrying amount of the loans receivable sa taon na yon, then you will multiply this by the original effective interest rate. Ito po yung amount na i-recognize mo as interest income. Alright. So, saan mo kukunin yung interest income kapag allowance method ang ginagamit mo? Kukunin mo yon sa account na allowance for impairment loss. Ito po ang tips ko sa'yo with regards to this loan impairment loss. So, bakit natin minomultiply itong future cash flow sa present value factor para makuha natin itong present value of all future cash flow. Ganito po kasi yun. This is the concept behind multiplying this projected future cash flow with the present value. So, we have our present year here is 2021, and then the future year here is 2024. So, all in all, kung titingnan mo, this is 4 years from the present to the future. Let's say, for example, I deposited 100,000 sa bangko. Alright? Nag-deposit ako ng 100,000 sa bangko. Do you think itong 100,000, kung hindi ko siya i-withdraw at hihintayin ko na lang ang 4 na taon, do you think itong 100,000 ay 100,000 pa rin pagdating ng 2024? Siyempre, hindi na, di ba? Let's say, for example, itong 100,000 naging 137,000. So, anong nangyari sa aking pera na 100,000 after 4 years, naging 137,000. The difference between this present value to this future amount of 137,000 is the interest. So, nag-earn ng interest ito sa 4 na taon. Depende sa agreement ng bangko at ng depositor. Alright? So, nag-earn ito ng 37,000 interest income. Alright? Ganun lang kadali yon. So, 4 na taon, lumipas ang 4 na taon, naging 137,000 na siya. Bakit? Kasi nag-earn siya ng interest. Tingnan naman natin ngayon dito sa projected cash flow. Alright? Alright. So, for example, kung meron kang matatanggap na 1,000,000 after 4 years, na 1,000,000, right? Present value ang ibig sabihin niya, present, kasalukuyan, value, halaga. Magkano ang kasalukuyang halaga ng 1,000,000 na tatanggapin mo after 4 years? Diyan pumapasok ang present value factor. Let's say, for example, itong 4 na taon, merong 12% na interest. So, magkano ang present value ng 1,000,000 na tatanggapin mo after 4 years sa 2021? Imo-multiply natin yan sa ating present value factor. At ang present value factor ng 4 na taon using 12% interest rate is 0.6355. So, ang present value, ang kasalukuyang halaga ng 1,000,000 na matatanggap mo after 4 years with 12% interest ay 635,500. Alright? So, ang difference ng 1,000,000 at 635,500 ay iyong interest income. So, ang difference niya na 364,500 ay yung interest income. Yan po ang concept kung bakit natin minomultiply yan to projected future cash flow sa present value factor ay para malaman natin kung magkano ang present value nung amount na yan na future cash flow para malaman natin kung magkano ang interest income. So, ang ibig sabihin nito is, ito po yung present value, ito yan. Alright? That's the present value of all future cash flow. Itong projected cash flow naman, ito po yung future cash flow. Alright? I hope na makakatulong ito sa pag-analyze mo ng loan impairment problem solving. Alright? I wish you good luck.